Welcome to Impact Pasadena. I'm delighted to have as my guest the Chief of Police of Pasadena, California, John Perez.
Thank you.
We've been talking in an earlier segment about a lot of the things. One of the things is the changes in policing that you've seen in your 33 years of career, all of it in the Pasadena Police Department. We've talked about the different kind of types of crime that we have, the demographics of the community, yes. Community policing and relations. But one of the questions in my mind as I think about this and hear you is how we pay for all this. And I know that's a tough one, but I know that's a large part of your job is to figure out how to deploy resources most effectively and efficiently in a city where, you know, we're supported by the taxpayers and we want to guard the resources as much as we can, and we're always looking at tight budgets. So where are we with the budget for policing?
Well, I'm fortunate to have a council like we do and a city manager that I follow his lead and learn from him. So, and talking with Steve Mermel and over the years being part of a union as a representative, the vice president of the Sergeants Association, and knowing that raises can't come every year, you know, and the frustration of that, knowing you work hard for it, I think that we have to really build a process and understanding of education, knowing that it can't continue all the time. When I was hired, it was likely 25 to 35% on top of my salary to afford my benefits and my retirement. I think today with some cities, you're looking at nearly 100%, at least 80. Some cities may be as low as 75. But basically it's the old theory of the Social Security challenge we had. For each person that exited, it took almost 2 people to replace them for the system to continue, as well as challenges with the investments. Are you investing properly to have a higher return, yet managing that enough so as you get towards a recession and you have dips in the economy that you're catching in advance, so you're not losing more than you're making. Right. So where's this balance at? We leave it to the experts for this. Yeah. So in policing, we are an expensive resource for the city. So making sure we're doing it right, we're doing it with the proper vision and the goals in mind is important. So at this point, adding, and we have had this problem, I think, for a couple of decades now, where we have solved many of our private sector and our government issues by just hiring more people, more people, more people. Crime is up, more people. All these things, as I've always heard, even in the private sector, and then when recessions come, you know, you see private sectors laying off hundreds, if not thousands of people because of this. Then on the government side, we see government services stop or get reduced, or the issues that's coming on with reducing the amount of fire or police public safety personnel. So how do we get at this? I think police departments have a responsibility to really evaluate the current resources, to organize the resources in a way where it's not just people on top of people, but truly looking at your resources and seeing, are you aligned with the challenges and the goals and the vision of what we're trying to achieve? And at that point, you could decide if more people are needed, whether it be police officers or staffing personnel. And we're going through that process now. We are looking at restructuring the department and our divisions to make sure that we're addressing the challenges of our community and then deciding what needs to happen next.
So just for our audience to get a sense of this, I mean, I know you have about 325 employees.
375.
375. Now, how does that break down between uniformed and civilian?
So we have 234 police officers, and we have 120 something civilian personnel. Okay. And they work, our civilian personnel, professional staff are in our dispatch center, records, our jail, our front lobbies, our records, where we're inputting data and doing these different things, as long as being support personnel for other specialized sections. Police officers with the 234, we have 5 defunded, which really puts us at 239. We've had as high as 252 and a little bit beyond that in the years past. And so we put those into 4 different divisions. We have executive staff of 4 or 5. We have a middle management of 14 with 5 administrators on the civilian side. We have supervisors with 33 supervisors and another 15 or 20 civilian supervisors as well. And then you go to the line personnel with both corporals, officers, and then our frontline personnel we use in the dispatch center and other areas. So you have to really evaluate, and the division of labor is a real thing. Yeah. It is science. It is trying to understand people need to be put in the places with the work that needs to be completed, and you have that staff to support you in some way.
So what is your budget's around 80 million, or are you up?
It's 88 million.
88 million.
Yeah, not all of that is I would say about 85 84 million, 82 million is general fund, and the rest comes from grants or outside sources and how we hire for the Rose Bowl and special events in which we have.
Is there revenue for you, for the city, in terms of the Rose Bowl and things like that, or do they pay you some money for that?
What the police department receives, if I were to work at the Rose Bowl for the Rolling Stones concert coming up, right? And so I worked the Rolling Stones concert, and so my money at my time and a half rate, which I wouldn't get, it's sergeants and below, that money would come from the promoter who plays the Rose Bowl, who pays the city, who then gets the personnel paid for working that event.
So is that in your 88 million? Or
that's in the 88 million
It is,
as well. So.
Okay. So what are some of the budget squeezes you're feeling, and how are you deploying the resources? You talked about redeployment of resources.
Right.
What are the priorities?
Well, the priorities are really crime prevention.
Yeah.
The more visibility, the more programming we could do, the more outreach we could do, really reduces the chances of crime occurring. When that fails, we need intervention programs, whether it be through contact with young people, programming, all these different type of things, and then comes the enforcement. We receive about, if you look at the activity of a police officer and the calls for service combined, roughly, give or take, 150,000 incidents a year. Of those, you have about 6,600, less than 7,000 people are either incarcerated for the crime or receive a ticket for it. So that leaves you a large number of incidents, 143,000 incidents where we're responding to calls in which we think there's an emergency, doing outreach or specialized quality of life programming to investigate other type of things that might be going on in our community.
So for the average policeman on patrol, for example, what does a day look like or a night look like in terms of the shift and the hours, and what's their life like?
So the officer, when they come in, we'll use the evening weekdays, they come in, they might come in at 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon and do a workout in our fitness room.
Okay.
And they'll go up to their locker room and get ready. And they have a roll call at 5:30. 5:30 to 6 is usually the roll call. The sergeant will have them all lined up there. They'll hand out their mail. Then they'll talk about things of what's going on with crime in the past 24 hours to have awareness. There's usually a training element, whether it be mental illness or how to search a suspect properly, or somebody went through the news for the day and said, hey, locally we had these things happen, be aware. So these crime trends, just educating the cops, getting them ready for their shift. After the roll call's done, they walk downstairs to logistics, they get a car. What used to be just your car keys and your radio, now is 2 or 3 bags of stuff. You have less lethal device you're rolling to your car. You have your taser. You have your car keys. You have your own bag of reports and extra equipment you may need, and you're putting that all into the station before you even go out in the street. It's
and
amazing.
You're wearing a body cam also.
A body cam is going on. You've tested it. You've charged it. It's downloaded everything. So the officer gets to the car. Now they have to check the whole car. They have to make sure the computer system's working. The in-car video system's working. Your body-worn camera's working. And you have to make sure all these items are working. You double-check the weapons in the car to make sure they're ready to go in patrol order, with the shotgun, the long rifle, the less lethal, everything's ready to go. That might take another 20 minutes or so. By the time you get in the car and you drive off, you're logging into the different computer systems that we have, both for the in-car video and for our computer-aided dispatch and records management system when you have to look at calls and maps. So then you go out into the field and you're either responding to a call where they give you something that's been happening to investigate. You might take a report off of that crime to investigate and interview more people. Or you might be conducting visible policing, where you're trying to be at the right place at the right time to make sure crime doesn't happen. There used to be an old patrol cop I used to know, and he'd come in and I'd say, how was your day? He'd say, I stopped all kinds of crime all over the city. To him, it was important to be there, to be here. And that was just the way he viewed it. So the officer will go through their 10, 12-hour shift under this type of system, and they'll write the reports. At the end of the day, they download their video. They have to mark the videos that are actually evidence-based. So when we go out to a call, it's not always on. We have to activate it by touching it twice, and then we activate the camera. So the officers, when they're going to critical calls, have to preload it to turn it on or get out to the scene, and all of a sudden they have to be able to turn it on.
Do they have a regular beat that they work, or does that?
Yeah, so we have neighborhood policing, service area policing, where in fact they are working their same beats. It's been harder for the last 3-4 years to do this. We lost 20% of our workforce to other departments. Our retention levels were difficult to hold, and we had about 25 vacancies. Today we're much better. Officers are trying to work the same beats as much as possible. That's part of our restructure, and our vacancies right now, we have 5. So we're really hiring well. People are here to stay, and we like where we're going with the new environment that we're building.
Okay, good. So what about the retention rate that you have? I mean, it sounds like it's pretty good.
The retention rates have gotten much better over the last couple of years, and I am proud of the officers making the decision to stay here with us. As we improve the organization, we improve community relationships, as we improve their training, there's reasons to want to stay here as well.
Good.
And I think that's important for us. I always explain to people that if a police officer doesn't feel safe, that's our first problem in our community. And some people say, well, wait a second. Shouldn't we feel safe before the police officer? No, because the police officer leaves that station, and if he enjoys his community, if he feels he has support, if he or she is going out there, they are truly feeling that support and that love from their community. They know it's going to be difficult. They know there's going to be hard decisions that won't always be accepted, but at least it starts from a level of support. So the officer feels safe, then you know what, the community will be safe, and the community will also begin to feel safe.
Gives them a sense of confidence.
Yes, absolutely.
What about the investigative stuff? So my house gets burgled, and I report it, and you come and you take a look. What would I expect as a citizen to happen when that happens?
Well, a police officer will come to the scene and they'll ask you some basic questions of when you left your house, when you came back, anybody have keys, anybody here is not supposed to be. We'll look to see if there's any burglaries in the area as well.
Right.
Sometimes we drive around to see if there's any evidence left. Sometimes the burglars will take the items and dump them into a bush nearby.
Yeah.
And I know one time I saw the people actually taking the stereo out of the bushes and you caught them.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case. Sometimes there's cars involved, and they're looking nowadays, whether you have an alarm or not, they're looking to break a window or kick in the back door, get in, run through. The alarm will go off. That's fine. I'll be out of here in 3 to 4 minutes. I'll grab jewelry. They may or may not grab the iPads. They don't want the big screens. They're looking for things, jump drives that might have your social security or financial documents, and they're going to get out of there as fast as they can.
So do they tend to be more organized groups, or are they random?
We get both. We still get mostly unorganized groups that just kick it in and know what to do when they get inside. Then you have the organized groups that have somebody outside. They've talked about it. They might have radios. It's a rarity we see that. Sometimes those are actually easier to catch because of how much work they put into it.
Yeah.
They'll stay there longer.
Yeah.
Gives us the opportunity, I suppose, if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, kicks it in, runs through, takes everything, and jumps out the back window and just keeps on running.
Yeah.
Those are sometimes harder to catch.
Are these typically occur at nighttime or day?
We used to see daytime burglaries most of the time, and we still do. But once in a while now, we're seeing some more nighttime burglaries occur in neighborhoods. And what we're asking for people is to stay connected to your neighborhood. When you leave, don't just jump in your car, back it up in reverse, and go to the grocery store. Get in the car and look around. Is there somebody in the car that doesn't belong? Make a call. Let somebody know. Text your neighbors. Do you have your neighbors' cell phones? The better we are connected as a neighborhood, the better we are connected with one another, there's less crime that will occur on your block, guaranteed. Because sometimes they'll park and see if they get noticed. All of a sudden, you're looking at them. You're taking a picture of their plate. You tell your neighbor. He says, go what you're doing. I'm going to watch them for a while, see what we got. And when you have that type of relationship with your neighborhood, you're going to see these bad guys decide, I'm going to the block next door, or the block,
So just to switch gears a little bit, but it's related. There's an app called Nextdoor, which you're probably familiar with, which I know that my son and his neighbors use all the time. So social media, how does that play into policing now?
Well, we don't monitor the Nextdoor that people would like us to.
Really?
We have enough things that we're monitoring, let alone the gossip on Nextdoor.
Yeah.
And so it becomes...
My cat is
And there's false info on there as well, so what really happens. So if we react to the false info, it could really cause a problem for us in contacting some young person. So we try to stay away from that. We're aware of it. We know people use it. Sometimes we're concerned for how it's used. You'll get people trying to start up things on it. Once in a while you get people that are trying to market whatever they're selling on it by some event that really didn't happen. So we're aware of it. We don't track it. When we understand, though, it is a great way for neighborhoods to stay in communication with each other. Just don't go to Nextdoor first. If you have a crime, call us, please, is what I ask for people to do. Because some people will get on Nextdoor first, and somebody will respond back and say, call the police. So we have to really train ourselves.
So on that one, I mean, how are you happy with your 911 services and how that works out? I don't understand the technology of it, but
we have text to 911 starting to develop, and we have soon you'll see video and things coming up. But departments have to be ready for that influx of data to the systems. But our 911 system still works very well. We still get the information very quickly. It's a quicker way to get into the dispatch center. Naturally, we have a series of 911s happen to be coming in at one time. You might not get the service you want out of it, but for the most part, it works very, very well for us.
How about the abuse of it? Does that?
We rarely see the abuse. We see the younger kids. And we continue on to those calls, and we'll try to give them some education to the 7-year-old who decided to say, wow, I got the police truck here, the police and the fire truck here. And so sometimes it takes that type of education, and we get that occurs. But for the most part, people treat it very well.
Good, good. Talking about the average cop and the issues that it's a dangerous job, it's a taxing job. Hopefully, guys and women are paid reasonably well for it. But there are also the pension issues that come up,
right.
And that goes to the budget and your resources
Correct.
long term, and the city and the taxpayers. So what's going on with pensions?
The pension system is still there. It's something for CalPERS at the state level to work out, whether they could increase the amount of investments they have to make more money. There have been some changes in the retirement systems for the last, I think, 2 cycles. We have one in 2012, 2013 to help soften it. And there was one before that where a lot of cities that were at the premium reduced it by 1. Mm-hmm. And so when they did all these different things, the goal was to try to soften and make it more affordable into the late 2020s and 2030s. Mm-hmm. So we still have some time to do that. The longer we have a positive economic environment, mm-hmm. the better the investments do. Again, I think they could probably up their investments a little bit more. But with that in mind, the better the economy, the more money the retirement systems make, like any account, and therefore becomes more affordable. However, it takes time to really balance out the cost, so it comes out, so the liability factor comes down on it. Yep. And my job with that is to ensure that I'm not going back to what I talked about, just throwing more police officers on top of the problem. Let me look at the restructure, let me look at what we have, and we could see at what we're doing. There are cities nearby us that are a quarter the size of us that have almost the same amount of officers. Yeah. It's crazy to me, and that's fine if it works for their city. Yeah. So I think we have to be careful about the retirement systems. In Pasadena, being part of the Labor Association, we had the opportunity to go to the most premium retirement system, and we went to the second tier system. So it's more affordable for us on the public safety side. But it still is very expensive on the public safety side than it is for the rest of the employees in the city. So we have to be aware of this cost to know it's here until there's another change in the system to see where it's going to be on their actuarials that are done so often with the state level.
So hot topic here is immigration around the country and our undocumented folks. I know at PCC, where I'm on the board, we have a fairly sizable number of undocumented students, DACA students really. Mm-hmm. But I think there's concern in the community about immigration enforcement and ICE, and I know there's been some issues around cooperating with the federal government, the ICE, on policing. Where do you come down on that, and what's the city policy on it?
Well, the police department's policy written is that we don't do immigration enforcement. Yeah. If we arrest you for a crime and you have illegal immigration status, that's not our concern. We're dealing with the crime only, and that's it. Yeah. In the years past, there were some holds placed on personnel, on people who were booked into our jail system to hold them for the federal immigration services, and we don't do that anymore either. Mm-hmm. If there's a signed affidavit of some sort from a judge, then we'll hold them for that because obviously there's a bigger crime involved. Sure. And so that's fine, but I haven't seen that yet. And so we make sure that, number one, it's about human rights. Yeah. It's about people. Yeah. And we understand the crime part of it, whether you're here, not following the proper immigration rules or not. It's not our problem. We'll follow the rules. My dad came here from Mexico, and he had told me as a young kid that, hey, he had to follow the rules more so than anybody else to make sure he got respect from people around him, and that was the goal.
I think there's a certain fear in the community about ICE and their activities and whether grandma is going to be deported. But I think that's a lot of it. It's anecdotal, and I don't know that there's necessarily a large ICE presence in this community. Rounding up people.
That's correct. I hear rumors at times, and what I'll do is I'll call ICE myself. I know the director, I know the people who work there, and I should, as a chief of police, and not say, I don't have any contact with them. That's foolish for emergencies that happen and things that occurred. I mean, I've been part of the process where ICE has helped me out, literally take people off the line. Before they're getting on the bus. I know they've helped me out on some of these issues. And at the same time, though, we have to be aware that the federal government has their objectives, their vision, their goals of trying to reduce the cost of immigration to the general population and to budgets for healthcare and all that. We understand there's a reason to do that. Our challenge is where's the balance?
Yeah.
Our challenge locally, I know where mine's at,
Yeah.
is that we don't enforce immigration. That is
Right.
not our issue.
Right.
It's about public safety.
Right.
I will not come in contact with you if you follow the law. If you are a good resident, citizen in our community, you're going to be fine.
Any notice? Do you notice any lack of reporting because of that kind of fear?
Not at all. We,
Yeah.
we have, in fact, we have one going on now, is our Community Police Academy. And we hold it once or twice a year in Spanish as well. And those classes are more filled than the regular ones. So I believe we have 50, we always open up the second door in our assembly room because we have so many people wanting to come in.
Yeah.
And I believe the class we have now is about 50 people.
Yeah.
And so it is amazing who wants to come through, and we stay connected with our services here. So I always tell them, if you got an issue with service, call me, test me.
Yeah.
You have a voice like everybody else.
Gotcha.
You know, so.
So, another hot topic, it's kind of interesting, is you served in doing some work in counterterrorism. And I also know that cybercrime is another bucket here.
Right.
What are some of those issues? I mean, we talk, Pasadena is a high-profile community. We have the Rose Parade, we have the Rose Bowl, we have a lot of things that are going on, and we got to be careful. And I know that's on you, kind of.
So, we have a challenge here in this country with the concern with technology and being breached. There have been government offices across this country that have been held at ransomware, they call it.
Yeah.
And so this has been problematic, and it's one of those situations where this challenge will grow for us. It's our response to it and be able to investigate it to understand, is it that 18-year-old kid in another country, or is it a terrorist group doing this? We have to decide that, much like we do tactics and policing. We have to get in there and separate these to figure out very quickly who is causing this ransomware, what is this about, who's doing it, and why. Are they trying to make 25,000, or are they trying to shut down the government? And we have to be very aware of this and what it could cause for people in hospitals and emergency services. So we have to be concerned with that.
So are you talking about a ransomware attack on the police department specifically, or on the city, or on a private company in Pasadena?
All three. We've been fortunate in this town, but they have happened across the country.
Right.
And we have to be aware of these things occurring. And we have a great relationship with the FBI, who does have provides us great training to be aware. This city has a technology department that does a fantastic job to ensure we're doing things correctly.
Right.
And there people have attempted this, and we catch them every time. We catch these emails that come in, or the things that are happening.
So if Caltech or PCC gets attacked, one of the people they call is you.
Absolutely. They have their own way of looking at at software and ways to identify this and just make sure they contain it to where it's at and not letting it spread.
Yeah.
But naturally, you want to ensure that the infrastructure, the police departments, government, all those continue to work, especially in hospitals, become a concern. So during my time in counterterrorism, we knew this was coming over the years. I spent time with NYPD and worked with them right after 9/11, working under Chief Bernard Malikian, who appointed me. I traveled the country, but then we had our own investigations here in the city of things that might have been terrorism related, especially during New Year's period. And so we'd investigate those. I worked part-time with the Sheriff's Department and their early warning systems there to make sure we had a task force going, that we had a quick response with the FBI, with the fusion centers around the area. And since that time, it's developed even further over these years.
What's a fusion center?
A fusion center is a place where this might be our fusion center in this room, and we are in contact with all the different police departments.
It's like the situation room kind of thing.
Absolutely, but this is a place where we have experts in the room that work around the clock, that are taking in the threats, evaluating it, getting the reports in on an everyday basis, and they're evaluating these all the time. So we have the ability to turn to them for advice, to report something, to get more resources on a problem, and not just at the state or local level. We'll go federal if we need to, and instantly we'll do this.
So for the Rose Parade, because that's a big one, and that's probably a prime example. It's a soft target, I guess you'd say, and it's one of the events around the country, really, that's profile. Without giving away trade secrets, but what kind of preparation do you do for an event like that every year?
We begin with the day after the parade. We're already planning for the next parade. That's number one.
Really?
Number two, we have thousands of public safety people who are working before the event and during the event. We use different technology. We do use the assistance of local agencies. We use the Sheriff's Department, who assists CHP. We have federal resources that we use as well. technologies at our disposal by these agencies. So we have a fantastic plan to ensure we're thinking about the problem, we're tabletopping potential issues, looking at contingency planning on everything that we need to understand what kind of threat, what kind of event has happened, and how much effort. It's real easy, much like what happened last year at the parade, to shut it down, not let it go any further.
Yeah.
But at times you have to look at it, evaluate it, and understand what kind of real issue you're looking at. So the concerns with active shooter, like the events with terrorists attacking the parade, all these different type of things, we take seriously all year round. And our practice is not just the parade. Our practice is other events that we put into play on concerts, on local events, on everything that we're doing. We are using these same strategies to understand if we have to adjust it or not. So it's a constant effort.
Occasionally I'll hear a helicopter going around above my house. What about the air support you have? And I'm also interested in drones.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I know you have a couple helicopters that are out
So
there.
our helicopters, we've had one of the oldest air operations services in the country at 50 years. It's a fantastic program that a lot of people look to for training from other departments, even the big ones like LAPD or the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
They're aware of our programming and how well we do. It is used much like a police car. So when it's up in the air, it may be responding to a call before the police officers, nobody's available. So you might see them circling, and it might be a ringing alarm for a house. The alarm might have went off.
Yeah.
And they're circling for that. So people usually think, oh man, why are they there?
Yeah.
Other people, they have nothing to do, why are they there?
Right.
And we're very responsive to people when we do make too much noise and
Sure.
some of these things. We try to respond and we bring people up for education.
Well, you use those floodlights too, and that's basically to, if somebody's running away or just to see what's going on in the area.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have other type of technology to look at to be able to see at night. And so we have different type of technologies to track different events going on. So we try to use all this when we believe a crime might be occurring. So it becomes very important for us to have the helicopter in the air. The drone,
Right.
we are looking at building a drone program. Drones will not take the place of helicopters. There's no way for that to occur. You have to have complete sight of the drone. It's hard to make sure that, if you're going to let it go across the city, how do you track it all the way across the city?
Yeah.
What if it does come down? What if it does, crash into an area? Are we there to watch that or review
Right.
it? So the drone has very specific applications: brush fires, tactical events, hazard spills, maybe an active shooter where somebody might be contained inside of a room. We could use the drone to get in there and make sure we have view of what's going on. So it has limited application, but very important application, and has to be part of our strategies going forward.
Well, this is great, Chief, and I've enjoyed so much the conversation and learned so much. We could go on for another hour or so, but thank you so much for coming and
Thank
for
you
your
for having me.
service.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.